Hey guys, Scott here. I just wanted to thank you for sitting through those ads at the start of the little talks. I know that they're kind of bothersome, but you know, when people make it through 50%, then we get our 4 cents per view or whatever it is, and eventually we'll be able to buy a better microphone. So thanks for enduring that. Hello guys, Scott Fratcher here, captain of the Orion, and I just got a question here today that came through. By the way, thank you for all the questions and emails. I appreciate those, and feel free to email or put some questions in the comments, and I'll try to answer them if that helps you at all. So I just had an email from somebody who said that they're getting ready to leave their boat, and they want to know how to preserve their reference. So we're going to have a reference talk here. So what is the reference? Well, the reference is when you fill out your application for your next boat, the crew or the captain or the crew, oftentimes it's both, will call back to your previous crew members and to your previous captain. Now, you notice I'm saying both. You don't actually list, oftentimes you won't list the previous crew members, but your crew members around you that are your new crew members, your new potential crew members that will be considering living with you and taking you on as part of their team, they oftentimes, everybody knows everybody in this industry, will know people on that boat, and they will call their friends, they will text their friends back on that boat and ask for a personal reference, which you will never even know typically has happened. So we're going to cover that aspect in a little bit separate here. So the reference is what your previous workmates and what your previous supervisor and what your previous captain say about you to the new potential crew that you're going to be working with, and the new potential supervisor and the new potential captain that you're going to be working with. So I'm going to start with what oftentimes people think that a reference might say. And I gotta say, I do references all the time. I get like all of our deckhands and our stewards, when they go to move on, I tell them, use me as a reference. And I'm really good with references. I stop what I'm doing. When I get a reference check, I stop whatever I'm doing and I answer that reference. Because oftentimes what happens is a guy will go to an interview, and he'll be at the interview, and the guy conducting the interview, he'll talk to 4 people. And at the end of the talking to 4 people, he'll get 50 CVs. He'll cut those down to a short list of 10 CVs. He'll call those people. 6 of them will actually answer the phone. The other 4 won't even, they'll be working that day or something, and they don't answer their phone. And so, the way things work, they just kind of miss out. So now he's down to 6. He decides he's going to talk to 4 of those. Those 4 he talks to, 2 of them he says, okay, it's going to be one of these 2 guys. Now they go off and call the references, because it takes a lot of time to call references. So they want to make sure that they actually want you. It's pretty common. People do things in their own way, but this would be a pretty common scenario. So now the new captain calls the previous captain asking for a reference check. Now, if the previous captain says something like, yeah, that guy was pretty good. Yeah, he worked out. Yeah, that was okay. Wasn't a bad deckhand. It's not good enough. That's not good enough. It may be good enough to move on from, kind of one funky low-level position into another funky low-level position where the boat isn't, really desirable. But if you want to get into one of those desirable positions, if you want to get into one of those positions that's really moving up the professional ladder, something you're going to get on a boat and you're going to be there for a few years, and that boat has a good senior staff, a coherent senior staff and a coherent captain, and the management company and the owner and all through the chain is actually working. It's the dream boats that you're actually thinking about getting on. Then the reference I just gave, yeah, that guy was pretty good. Yeah, I remember him. Yeah, he did okay. Yeah, he showed up to work every day. That's not good enough. The reference that comes from the previous captain has to be, that guy was outstanding. I would hire him back in a minute. And you're going to be lucky if you get him on. He was great for us in the situation that we hired him for, and I would hire him right back in a similar situation. Yeah, that guy was great. That is what your previous captain needs to say. He needs to sell your services to the new captain. If you're going to be moving up the chain, if you're going to get one of these good positions. Because the other guys that are in the lineup trying to get hired next to you, your competition for that position, one or two of those guys will be absolutely fantastic. I mean, you got to wonder, there's 60 guys walking the dock every morning asking for jobs. And out of those 60, well, probably a third of them would just be a disaster. And, they're running away from their regular life to try to find some new horizon. And a third of them, would probably be okay. And that's the reference that you're getting. He's going to be okay. And then a third of them would be, they would be pretty good. They're serious. They're making a career. They're moving up the ladder. This is it. This is their career choice. This isn't just a adventure for a year or two in between high school and college, or in between your second year of college while you want a little life experience, so you're going out and work on a boat for a year. That's the middle third. The top third are guys who are really serious. And of that top third, of the guys who are really going to make a career in the yachting industry, of that top third, there will probably be 10% of that top third that are just outstanding. They're just phenomenal. And the guys that are doing the hiring, they know this. And they want the top 10% of the top third. That's who they want to bring onto their team. If they can figure out how to get them, if they can figure out how to convince those guys. Because those guys, the top 10% of the top third, they're in demand. More in demand. And when those positions open up and all those CVs come, the guy reading the CVs, he has to be able to make a decision. He has to be able to come up with, how does this CV stand out from the other ones to get you on the short list? Now you're past the CV. Now he's actually getting the reference, and now he's going to get 2 or 3 references when he talks to people. And one of them says, yeah, that guy was okay. And he says, okay, that's the middle 30%. Next one, hey man, that guy was really good. In fact, we would have brought him on as mate, except there was no mate position, so we had to keep him as deckhand. And that's why he moved on, was because he's off looking for a mate position. But he could have been a mate over here, but our mates are staying, so there was no position open for him. And so that guy, he was outstanding. And that's the reference that you want your captain, your previous employer, to be saying for you. Now, how do you make that happen? Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Well, let me give you some suggestions. One thing, during the time when you start to realize that the time is coming, okay, boat's winding down, the position here is winding down, that type of thing, you may say to your captain, hey, the season's coming up to an end. What do we got, like 3 more weeks at the end of this season? Okay, well, at the end of this season, I'm thinking about going back and doing my next set of ancillary courses and moving up the ladder and all that, and I'm going to need my sea time letter and all that, because the season's ending. And what kind of reference would you give me? And you can talk to him at that point. You can give him this video and say, hey, I'm trying to be the top 10% of the top third. And when the time comes, I want you to think about the reference that you give me, because it's going to make a big difference in my life. So you can actually have this candid conversation with the captain. The captain may just say to you, hey, dude, I'm sorry, but you're not going to get that top CV. You're not going to get that top reference. At least you know at that point what you're facing. But so that's one of them. You talk to the captain, you might be able to at least put it in his mind, at least negotiate. He might say to himself, well, this guy's pretty serious. I mean, he's talking to me about it. He's got a plan. It's a lot better than 3 of the other guys who are off drinking every night that they can and waking up hungover to do their work. So that's the next one. How much are you drinking? How much are you becoming altered in and around your job? If you're serious about the job, the guys who are serious, they're not drinking. I know everybody's going off to the bar. There's a big party. Everybody's having a good old time. People blow off steam every now and again. But if you're drinking 2 nights a week, chances are pretty slim you're going to get a good reference. You may have a drunk captain. There's a lot of captains who are heavy drinkers, and then they don't see anything wrong with having crew that are off drinking all the time. But I'll tell you that the boats that are really professionally run, the captains aren't drinking all the time. The boats that are sitting in port, they're just being looked after, that incidence may go up a little bit. Afternoon, a little bit of socializing, so to speak. But for you, as the crew member trying to go up the chain, if you're a drinker, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have to reduce it. You have to get it down to maybe one little blow off of steam every other month. Nobody's going to notice that. Friday and Saturday, going off, and after Friday work, you do a half day on Saturday, or you do your day on Saturday, you're all hungover, you do your work on Saturday, go out Saturday night. A lot of guys do this. A lot of crew do this. Look at places like the Soggy Dollar in St. Martin. Every port has a couple of these bars, and they're just packed with crew. And those crew right there, they're in the middle 30%. And that's where they're going to be. They're going to be the middle 30%, 9 out of 10 times. And so if you're serious about the career, then you shouldn't be having those drunk fests on the weekend. So what else can you do? Well, here's a trick that one of the deckhands told me one day. He went around the whole boat and he remade all of the little warning signs and the anchor chain length signs. He went around the whole boat. We got like fire exit plan behind this door, for example. He went around the whole boat and he re-upped all those signs. Made them look all really professional. They were done with with one of those little label makers, is how the signs had been done, and you'd open up a door and the fire plan would be behind it, as an example. And he went through and he made a list of all of those little signs, all those announcements, and he went and had professional labels made up, these little plastic things that he could stick on with double sticky back tape. And he pulled off those kind of funky labels and he put on those double sticky back tapes. And then he said to me, see, from now on, every time you look at that little sticker right there and see that upgraded plaque that looks good and is kind of like fits the boat now, you're going to think, hey, remember Jake? Yeah, Jake put those on. Man, Jake was good. See, so Jake could have done a lot of other things, but he left a lasting impression on the boat. So that's something that you can do. Look around for things that you can do to leave a lasting impression on the boat. So when you're gone, the boat itself still has some memories of upgrades that you put on. And people will look at it and they'll go, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. Oh, yeah. And in their mind, the negative things are fading. You forgot to make your bed, you did this, you did that. There's a list of negative things that are slowly falling by the wayside, but every couple days they see that memory that you left behind. So it isn't like you left a really clean teak stern deck. You left a really clean teak stern deck, but you left a little book there that explains how to clean the teak stern deck. You made up a little pamphlet listing out the chemicals that are needed, listing out the amount of brushes. How many brushes should be on hand? This should be your stock. And you left that there. So from now on, every time that who's ever in charge of the deck is taking somebody around to show him how to clean, he gets there and he goes, oh yeah, and here's this book. Yeah, oh, that guy. Yeah, I remember him. And then 2 weeks later, he gets a reference check for that guy, this guy I'm calling Jake. So Jake leaves this book of instructions on how to clean the deck. That's all very well done and is up there in the deck locker, and a digital copy left on the computer so we can reprint and modify when necessary. And now they start remembering Jake in a positive light. Jake's been gone for a year, but his book remains, and the people that remember Jake, that'll be giving Jake a reference, they continually get this positive influence from Jake. So if you leave a lasting reminder of the job that you were doing, then your chances of getting a over-the-top reference are another step better. Another one that you might consider. When the time comes to leave your boat, there's this thing called short timer's disease. You got 3 weeks to go. You're already counting it off. You already know you're going back to your school. You're going back to your previous life. You got something else and that becomes your focus. So the final 3 weeks, you're just coasting. coast through the final 3 weeks. You know, you've already done a year. You got 3 weeks left to go. Ain't no big deal. I can do it standing on my head. Yeah, we come in, we dock, we go over here. Yep, that's it, we're done. Yep, okay, thank you very much. Back to my regular whatever it is. But your regular whatever it is very well may not be working out. You may go back to school and after 6 months in school go, you know, this just ain't all that great. Sailing that boat around, going from the Caribbean across to Europe and coming back, that was great. You know, that was life adventure that I was getting paid for. And now you want to come back into the industry. And now you're looking back on that short-timer's disease that you had for the final 3 weeks. And that took a whole year that you were going to get a good reference, and then you flaked in the final 3 weeks. And when a crew member flakes in the final 3 weeks due to short-timer's disease, I'm leaving, it doesn't really matter, I'll just do the minimum to get by. And nobody's going to talk to you about it then because you're leaving. Nobody cares. Yeah, okay, fine, whatever. You want to blow your reference? Up to you, dude. That's what people will be saying in the back of their mind. And so all of a sudden, all the things I've talked about of how to get along as new crew, they all start to go out the window and things start to get pushed a little bit more. And so that final 3 weeks, that final month, when you realize that you're going, that's when you need to turn it on. The race is almost over. You're running a marathon. You're in the final mile. That's when you need to pour on the coals. That's when you need, at that point, to really show your stuff, to really be an exemplary crew member, and that'll pull you through. And even if you had kind of some low points in the year, you know, you were doing a few things that maybe almost got you kind of on the edge, and you know, they were going, this guy's the bottom of the middle 30%. You know, that's what was in their mind. If you just pour it on for the final month, go back and listen to that talk I did, and if you were a new crew showing up, and spend your final month as if you were a new crew. Go through the whole list. Start doing the double cleaning. Start cleaning everything. Make your area doubly clean. Make sure that you make your bed every morning when you climb out of bed. Go on through and just take it on as if you were starting on a new boat and you wanted to impress everybody, and do that for your final month. Because that final month is what will really be sticking in the captain's mind, the supervisor's mind, the people that are going to be giving you your future reference. And without a good reference, it's really hard to move up the chain. When you start going up, when you start getting into positions of like captain when the owner's not around, oh my goodness. When I got the job that we're on right now, we were coming off of another boat that our owner gave us an over-the-top, this is the best guy that you're ever going to get reference. So the owner of the boat tells the owner of the new boat that we're talking to about moving to, he gives us an over-the-top reference. Then the owner of the new boat that we're moving to, he starts calling our references. Now, he didn't just call the references that I listed out. Remember, they're turning over this multi-million-dollar piece of equipment to you and expecting themselves to just kind of go away and have you look after their interests. So how does that guy know? Well, that guy, the guy that was doing the hiring for us, he started going back over the internet and he started looking at all the other boats that we had worked on over the years and hunted down those owners and called them up and had conversations with them. And I was getting calls from people that I got a call from a boat that I had been on 20 years earlier. So we had been on a boat 20 years ago. You know how long that is in a career? It's a long time. And he called that guy that was 20 years ago and talked to him on the phone for 45 minutes. He probably spent 5 hours on the phone that day talking to people about us before he came back and said, okay, great, yeah, here, let's sign this contract and carry on. Because as you move up the chain, your references become more and more important and a greater percentage of the hiring. So you can have a great CV, but without those good references, you're going to have much more difficulty moving through the captain phase and moving through the management phase without those spectacular references on your CV, without those spectacular references in your history. Now, you can get on from one deckhand to the next deckhand. You can stay in those entry-level positions and just kind of make these lateral moves through the industry with kind of funky with kind of funky references. But when you want to move up, you want to start making it a career, these references have to be stellar. How about the leaving of the boat? Here's a good one for you. This is another one that'll help you a lot. When you leave the boat as a crew member, you're supposed to leave the boat as clean and as presentable as it was when you got there. Actually, more so. You're supposed to leave it so that the next crew member can just move in. Well, I see time and time again, I see people leave the boat and they do 30% on their cleanup. But if you, and I'll tell you what that does. It takes the steward department, and the steward department is like, oh my God, I gotta go clean up after that guy. Look, he left his pubic hairs in the drain, didn't even clean that out. Oh God, oh, there's toothpaste in the sink. I know. And I'll be going, well, he said he cleaned it down there. I know he said he cleaned it, but like, I couldn't give this to a new crew member right now. This place is disgusting. And so now you got the stewards are down there complaining about the guy who just left, the crew member who just left. And that does not help his reference. It kind of slides him from the top 30% down to the middle 30%. And it's a bad timing because it's the last thing that's on somebody's mind. It's the bitter aftertaste from a good cookie. And you don't want to leave that bitter aftertaste. So what do? Well, you go in there and you clean that room like double. And if you can't clean the room, some of us, like the engineers, engineers just don't typically have in their mind how to clean a room spotless. So go down and talk to one of the stewards. Say, hey, what's it going to cost to have you clean my space like it's getting ready for a new passenger? Like we're going to a boat show. What's it going to cost to make my area and my bathroom and my shower and my hallway look like it just came out of a boat show? And most of the stewards, I don't know, give me $40. Bam, you give them $40. They clean the whole place for you. And when you leave and the captain walks down there, because now he's got to go after you leave, the captain's got to go walk through your space, make sure you didn't leave anything. He'll look and go, oh, man, that's pretty nice. Yeah, oh. And that's the last thing that the captain or your supervisor is remembering about this departing crew member is how spectacularly clean and presentable and ready to go they left their living space. And that's a fantastic way to up your potential CV. And the worst thing that you can do, the easiest way to ditch that reference is to leave your place a mess. And I see it all the time. And it happens. You're rushed, you got airplane flights, you got car rental reservations, you got people calling. There's all this stuff that's happening during that final 3 or 4 days that you're on the boat, all of this organization of your life that has to happen. And meanwhile, you've still got your responsibility to the boat. And if you drop your responsibility to the boat on those final 3 days, then you're dropping your potential reference 2 or 3 notches. And we can't afford in this industry to drop our references 2 or 3 notches. We need to up our references. We want our references always to end on a brilliant note. Okay, so that's the reference check. Okay, so now I'm just going to say a quick thing. If you're leaving references, you're giving a reference to someone, and you got to be honest. But when I say that I stop what I'm doing and I leave that, and I return that reference right on the spot every time, first time. That is something, and I tell my deckhands that I'm going to do this for them, and I tell the stewards and everybody who works on the boat, I tell them that this is what I will do for them. This is part of the deal that we have going. You will clean up your place. You will make my life easy. And in return for that, if you did a good job and if you're going to get a positive reference, then I will make sure that positive reference comes back, bada boom, bada bang, instantly. And the reason for that is, we go back to that captain had those 2 people that he has come down to. And oftentimes you might even be sitting in the room. You're sitting there with the captain and he says, okay, I could do this guy. Oh man, I better get a couple reference checks. What if I don't get a reference check? And but he's already made the decision in his mind, you're the guy he wants. So he sends off, he looks at your CV and there's, 2 reference checks. And he looks, Scott Fratcher and, Bill so-and-so. And they got emails down there. So he sends off so he grabs his phone, he tells you, give me 15 minutes. Let me just call your references. And he does a quick email out. Hey, I've got a guy here. He's looking for a job. He says he was on your boat, blah, blah, blah. And that guy, that captain, and that potential hire oftentimes are sitting right there. And that's why I stop on the spot right there. Bam, send that email right back. Yeah, he was a great guy. I had really good luck with him. And he left the place clean. And he didn't have any problems getting along with the crew and blah, blah. I give him his reference. And the captain on the other end, he may be down to 2 people on the short list. And he sends off that, and he needs to hire someone. Now, people always procrastinate, It comes down to, I need to hire someone. I actually needed them yesterday. But, I was busy. I was doing my, my such and such an inspections then. And oh my gosh, oh man, now we're leaving in 3 days. Yeah, I need a deckhand. And that's how oftentimes the position is suddenly opened up. And now the captain is ready to make a decision. And that's where you want to be. You want to be in the hiring phase when they're ready to make a decision. You don't want to be in the hiring phase when, well, let's get 30 applications and then, we'll sit around and think about it. And, in 2 weeks we'll sort through those and come up with the prime candidate. Yeah, you might get through that one, but the time to be there is when they're ready, is when the boat is ready to make that decision. So there the guy is. He's sitting there in the application process. And the captain, sends off his request for a reference. Boom, puts his phone down. Says, turns back to the guy. Says, okay, I just sent off the ref. Beep beep. Oh, I just got an email. Oh, there it is. You're still in the interview room, and the captain that's trying to hire you opens up an email right there. Positive reference check. Boom. He's already made the decision in his mind that he wants you. That's why he's sending off the reference check. The reference check verifies and covers his position. You go off and do something crazy. You've been on the job for 5 days and you take the tender and run it at 70 miles an hour at night and hit a marker, and everybody's going to be going to the captain. Who's that guy you hired? Oh, well, he seems so good, well, did you check his references? No, I didn't call the references. And so he can't do that. He has to call the references. And he has to cover himself by getting that positive reference from about the crew member that's being hired, and bam, it came back, and 120 seconds later, it's there on his phone. He's covered his butt. He's gotten a positive reference, and that guy got the job. And that happens all the time with our previous deckhands. So that is something that you as a reference guy can make sure that you do when you give a reference, is give that reference, boom, right now, Johnny on the spot, so that they're not waiting on the other end. So, okay, references, we all need them. And, okay, now that last one, there's one more that I just wanted to cover here. When I said that other crew members in the boat, other crew members will get an opportunity to voice about somebody who's being hired quite often. Not always, but quite often. And the good captains will do this because what it does is it gives everybody the chance to forever hold their peace, so to speak. So it gives the other crew members a chance to say, yeah, I guess, yeah, it gotta be okay, and so now when the person gets hired, if they turn out to be a dud, then everybody else still has cohesion in the crew because they all kind of made this decision together. So oftentimes what will happen is you'll go for your interview. While they're checking your references, they send you down to the crew mess. They go downstairs, have a cup of coffee. And so, you go downstairs, you're having a cup of coffee. You think that, you're just having a cup of coffee. And all these other people come up, hey, who are you? Oh, wow, I'm so-and-so. And, you have like a little conversation. Oh, what boat were you on? Oh, how cool is that? Well, that's part of your interview process. Did you ever catch on to that? I hope you caught on to that because it's part of your interview process, right? Oftentimes your interview process goes like this. They need somebody, so they hire somebody for a day work. They take somebody on for 2 or 3 days of day work. At the end of the tour, they might hire 6 guys. You ever wonder why, Mom, how come you got 8 people out here doing this job that really 2 of us could do as a day worker? But you hired a bunch of us. Okay, well, that's cool. Well, what they actually did was they went down the list of people that, maybe, that's an entry-level position. Yeah, that guy maybe. Then they call like 8 of you over. And so they got 8 of you cleaning for 1 day or 2 days instead of 2 guys for the week. At the end of that first day, then they say, let's talk to those 2. So they take those other 2 guys and they say to them, the other 6 guys now, they get sent home. Okay, thank you very much. Great great day work, because they don't want to have any confrontation. Yeah, well, they're pretty lax, dude. Nope, they just go away. They never know. Those 6 guys who got sent away oftentimes don't even realize that this was part of the job interview. 2 guys stay. They get called back the next day. They might get called back 3 more days while everybody gets to hang out and work with them and just kind of, they're just observing because they're just day workers. Then they'll say, hey, we're going to make a passage. We're going from this point here, we're going from Florida and we're taking the boat to Bermuda, then the Caribbean. And we need a crew member for that trip. You want to make the trip with us? And so that is when that's the crew member, the new crew member's signal that he's moving up the chain. But if he gets to the other end, if he turned out to be a dud, if he didn't watch the video on how to get along, if he didn't have natural talent on getting along with people, when he got to the other end, unless he had some strange superpower that everybody just loved, at the end of the 2 weeks, when they bring the boat in, and they say, thank you very much, that was great, appreciate it, and you've done your delivery, and that's it. And you never realize that's all part of the hiring process, and you didn't make it through the 2-week time. Then what they may say is, well, we've got 2 charters. You want to stay on for the 2 charters? And then, see, they're extending this out. See, at the end of the 2 charters, now they've known you for, it's coming up on, 5 weeks now. And at the end of 5 weeks, everybody ought to be able to make a pretty good decision if that crew member is going to be worth hiring and going to be worth keeping on long term. So, I want you to know that because that's a standard practice. And if you're not making the grade, then it's easy because you've got all these little points in the hiring process where people are just let go anyway. And so it's not like you did something wrong at that point. It's just they're saying, we can do better. Let's get someone else for the charters. So when you made your passage and you got away with the passage okay, but they're going, I don't know. It just wasn't up enough to do the charter, though. Let's find some. And now it's an easy time to get somebody else for the charter, but you're right there. So if you were going to be the guy, well, you just had your 2-week extended interview probationary period, you might call that. Okay, so reference. Got to protect your references. I gave you some ideas there. If you got any other ideas on how to protect your references, put them in the comments. We're all trying to help each other out here. So if you can help out somebody else and put your comments in there and say what you've done to ensure your references and make sure that your references come out all the better, well, that's going to help everybody. And we're all here to help each other. Okay, guys, hope that helped. And hey, thanks again for sitting through that advertisement at the very beginning. I really appreciate that. We're trying to get some other microphones and some other stuff, make this a little bit better. So we can't, I'm only willing to put so much into this. I'm already putting a whole bunch of time. These things take a lot of time to put together, by the way. First I got to sit down. First I got to answer the question, read the question. Somebody answers me. Okay. What's this guy want? Okay. How about references? All right. Okay. What am I going to say about references? I got to think about it for a couple hours while I'm off doing something else, like, references. Yeah, how does that work? So I kind of have like a little bit of a coherenceness to my rambling that I'm going to give you. And then at the end of that, now I got to put the thing on a movie maker, and then I got to try to put something on the background that doesn't look too ridiculous. And then at the end of that, I got to put it up on YouTube, and then I got to put it into the little playlist. And by the time I'm out of it, I got to listen to it twice to make sure that actually came through, and like it doesn't have a bunch of static or something like that. So a little bit involved in this, and sitting through that ad at the very beginning, at least half. You only got to sit through half of that ad. And so that's all YouTube's right there. You sit through half of that ad, and the guy gets his 4 cents. And 1,004 cents is enough to buy a microphone. Okay, guys, take care. Bye-bye.